It's been a tough week or a couple weeks for crypto, really, with the slide in Bitcoin and all the coins. And guess what? Regulators are up in the ante here, and they're warning about fraud and volatility and Bitcoin futures and Bitcoin products in general. For this, we want to bring in Dan Morehead, Pantera Capital CEO. So what are you making of this latest growing chorus of regulators speaking out against the volatility in crypto?
I think they're just doing their job to make sure investors know that it's a young speculative asset class and that they should potentially have less exposure to it than they would, say, IBM stock or something, with very low volatility. The thing to keep in mind is, although Bitcoin is very volatile, it's only had 1 year where it's printed a new low. So in the last 10 years, 9 of them have been up. And so although it is volatile, most of the volatility is on the upside.
Dan, do you think the regulatory concerns, is it something to worry about, or is it on the flip side a bigger step towards legitimacy and acceptance?
Oh, I think it is. And I think in general, the regulators have done a great job with cryptocurrency. 8 years ago, we launched the first crypto fund in the US, and we decided to launch it as a hedge fund because we thought the SEC would take some time before they approved an ETF. 8 years later, we're still waiting for that. But it's all within the spectrum of something that's going to take decades to play out, so I'm not too concerned.
And what do you see those next steps? Because we heard this week at least one firm is joining with Coinbase to offer cryptocurrency to IRA 401k customers. You have the continued institutionalization and rollout as various asset managers and I guess banks build platforms as do broker dealers. Where are we in this space, and where do you see the next innovations coming?
Yeah, so that's a great way to say it, that a few years ago, the big issue in the space was no big regulated custodians, and now we have a half a dozen, very, very stable, well-known custodians like Fidelity that do custody. The OCC now allows any nationally chartered bank to do custody, so you have a number of banks offering that. And just in the last 3 or 4 months, many of the major Wall Street firms have come out with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency offerings. That's helping more people get exposure to the space. And then in terms of within the ecosystem itself, decentralized finance is the kind of biggest use case right now. It's taking the middleman out of borrowing and lending or exchanging assets on exchanges.
So let's take a look at what's happening around the world, because this week we had El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender, the first country to do this. How big of a milestone is this for Bitcoin, just in terms of, I guess, have we turned a corner now for the cryptocurrency?
It is. I mean, it's a huge milestone that the country is taking it as legal tender. It just credentializes the currency. And, you can see more businesses, and potentially more governments. Ultimately, I think most central banks will own some cryptocurrency as a reserve asset. A lot of corporations are already doing that. It's appreciating relative to paper money. So it's a much, I would say, safer place to have your savings rather than in paper money, which is being debased at a rapid rate.
All right, we only got a minute here. What about that Bitcoin ETF in the US that you were just talking about? How close are we? Do you see it this year even?
Oh, it's been a parlor game for the last 8 years, predicting when it's going to come. It seems like it would come within the next 12 months, that the standard for a cryptocurrency ETF seems to be much higher than it is on other asset classes like platinum or palladium. Bitcoin trades $70 billion a day on hundreds of exchanges in dozens of countries. So, it really is extremely difficult to push around, which is one of the main worries when regulators are trying to decide whether an asset class is worthy of an ETF.
Yeah, helpful to remind everybody that the volatility in Bitcoin was actually much greater 2 to 3 years ago. All right, Dan Morehead, Pantera Capital CEO, thank you for joining.